All right, so this is the trailer for the Fibonacci box. So Josh and I have been the brain geniuses behind the box, if you will. And it took quite a bit of engineering to get it to this point, but we're pretty happy with where it's come, happy with the design. We went through a whole bunch of rabbit trails and like a whole loop of different possibilities with it, but we ended up at this, and we're gonna roll with it, right?
Yes, it's pretty good as it is. Definitely had a lot of different ideas as far as how we'd make it, and some things that we're just gonna create a lot more complexity and and complication, whereas this has enough complication to it, but not like ridiculously overcomplicated like it could have been.
Right. So with this kind of puzzle, like, for a buying guide, like this is not a adventure puzzle. Like I categorize puzzles as adventure puzzles or classical puzzles, which is what I'd call this one. And there's a few other classifications in there, maybe 3D printed, although you can have a 3D printed adventure puzzle, but frivolity puzzles or whatever. This one I think is a classical because it introduces an interesting idea. The Fibonacci, it represents that in a puzzle form, and there's a nice coincidence that I found that works for a puzzle, and that's all it does, and it doesn't lead you on this big adventure like some of the other boxes do. But I like both kinds of puzzles, so I definitely wanted to make this one, even though it's a deterrent from our current run of adventure boxes we've been doing.
Yeah, I like the adventure ones, in that they take you on sort of a journey as you continue to discover and solve it. But this one is a different style, like you were saying, like you called it the traditional style or
classical.
It's a little bit of a different style, like you're saying, but this one goes more along the artist side, you could say. It uses more craftiness in the fact of us making it, the wood the way it's cut out. Like for those who don't cut a lot of things or make a lot of things or manufacture a lot of things, making something that has this contour and this shape all the way around it is not an easy thing to do for the most part. That's really difficult. There's not many ways you can cut that out.
Particularly in wood, where you're going to have grain that chips out depending on the grain orientation in the piece you're cutting. You got to watch out for chip out, and
you just need access to so much of it too, like because the inside of this is all machined. Obviously, that's where a lot of tolerances are because there's things going on inside there. But then obviously you need access to all the outside as well, and you need to be able to cut these kind of fancy contours that go in every direction. So that's not an easy thing to cut out. That's something that it just kind of looks cool, I think. This box could be just one that's like looked at and appreciated. Some of them you really appreciate, not so much by looking at, but by solving. This one you can solve it and appreciate it, but also just looking at it is cool. Especially when you think about how difficult it is to make this shape that it is. Right.
Yeah. I'd say classical puzzles like this, you're kind of representing. You got to take yourself more seriously, sort of, because hey, you're going at the Fibonacci sequence, which there's a lot of serious puzzle collectors who are deep into math and engineering, and they really appreciate those things. They've spent years working with these numbers and all that kind of math and stuff they do. So you kind of gotta appreciate that in your work and take it seriously and do a really nice job of finishing and cleaning up the geometry, and just a lot of work went into making it elegant, not too bulky, not too mechanically complex or overly engineered. to kind of break it down to its simplest form, but to add in the art and to find where the two converge.
Although that being said, there are some things that are a little bit complicated. There are some things that are very complicated, actually.
Yeah. Well,
maybe we won't get into
you're
that
talking
right
about this.
Mainly the top, but also some of the bottom is like maybe extra complicated in the sense that we could have designed it a lot more simple in its very function, but it's kind of a neat way to solve it, you could say. So we decided to go with that direction.
Yeah.
But the main complication, I would say, is right under the top of this. It's extremely complicated and took a lot of work to get that figured out, and the number of directions that you could go in that are wrong is something that I think we calculated at one point, and it's pretty high. You could go a lot of different ways down the wrong path.
Right.
And maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense to you right now, but once you try to solve it, you'll see what we mean by that. There's a lot of dead ends, you could say.
Which I'd say for somebody just doing shots in the dark, it would be very complicated for them to solve it. But, we have the clues. It's Fibonacci spirals on here. And for serious puzzle collectors, of course, they're not just going to, unless they enjoy that kind of thing of just brute forcing, calculations on a box, which some people do.
And by brute forcing, you don't mean...
No, not actual physical force, but I mean mental computing brute force.
Like trying every scenario until you find one that works. Which you'd be there for a while.
And so this design was the same sort of thing for the pie box that I designed 7 years ago. And I just took it and we re-engineered it so that it works better. It's not kind of a stretch for a engineering guy to agree that the function of it is somewhat sound, at least. Whereas the pie box was a little, it works, but it was asking a lot for the components, and so hopefully this is all revamped and much better in this design. But yeah, same kind of mechanism that was used in the pie box. But another difference we made was we put in a brass plate, which, and steel pins, which is just a wear item for something requiring that much precision. And,
those had to be pretty tight. Not ridiculously tight tolerances, but something that would have never worked for this box. And how small things had to be, it never would have worked. So had to go with that, and it comes out pretty nice. It feels really nice when working through the mechanisms and stuff. Different snapping sounds, and that's great.
Detents and such, and we added some of our own detents specifically, and that's pretty nice. And then we got a few detents for free, kind of. Just the way that the geometry of everything works out, it has detents. Well, we should probably solve it, right? No, nobody wants to see that. We'll let you guys figure it out. Yeah. We're not going to solve it, but as far as making them, we think we're going to be able to make the first 100 anyway in the next 2 months. That's a goal we have, and so we're gonna list 100 of them on Shopify so the first 100 people who click on that can get one of those. And we're looking at shipping in October. We're going to be using both CNC machines. I have one behind us here, and then one's at Josh's shop where he's been doing a lot of prototyping, and so we're going to use both of those. And then that's where actually there's no 3D printed part in this box at all. And then the other thing is we added Richlate on just a few parts that were too thin for wood to work.
It's really nice. I like it. quite a bit working with it. It's pretty nice. Like they cut and cuts with a pretty nice finish usually. Doesn't require a lot of extra sanding or anything.
But hey, first time using it, pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think people will be happy with it too.
All right, well, I guess that wraps it up, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
why don't you, let's close this out here.
All right, folks. So there's the puzzle box. We talked about it quite a bit, and it's pretty neat. I think you'll all enjoy it quite a bit. So hopefully we'll. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay. Sounds good.
So hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on one of these very soon, as we are going to be starting to produce them, like you said, like as
Next
soon as
2 months.
possible, and we'll be getting them out to you guys, and I think you guys will enjoy them very much. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Oh yeah, that too.
And we'll have more videos coming out of us making it and the processes involved. We can show a whole lot of it on camera, and we're not going to spoil it, which is fun. So sure, that'll be interesting for people to watch. So take care. See you later. Okay, so the Fibonacci sequence is something that occurs in nature over and over and over again. And so you see it all over the place. You see it in the spirals of pine cones, sunflowers. The number of petals on a flower is often a Fibonacci number. I don't know if ironic is the right word for it, but so this is our fusion file where I designed the Fibonacci, where Josh and I should say, designed the Fibonacci box. And guess what happened? Well, it made all these little circles where it's carving out those flutes. And it connects those circles with a line, and it takes the motion of the machine and it made this spiral. And it just so happens to be that while I'm machining the Fibonacci box, the computer design picks a Fibonacci spiral, perfect Fibonacci spiral, to tell the machine where to move to cut the next carving. So it's just crazy.